I decided to invite a Dodgers fan on. Today, I'll be joined by guest Jake Wardrip as we discuss being a fan of the most evil baseball team to ever exist and also his NIL collective on this episode of the Scho-Zone. All right, everybody, welcome to the Scho-Zone. I am your host, Ryan Schofield, coming at you from the DeGen. Everybody like, subscribe, comment, share, all that douchebag stuff that podcast hosts like myself say. As I was talking to my guest on here, we don't spit on it. We don't lube it up. We just get right into it. I am joined by Jake Wardrip. Jake, welcome to the Scho-Zone.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Good to be here.
Now, can you tell that I nervously ran off set real quickly to go fill my cup of coffee up and then get back here? Or did I do that smoothly?
No, it was super smooth. Absolutely.
Yeah. And believe it or not, I'm only on my first cup of coffee. That's just how I kind of am wired on this one. But anyways, Jake, we chatted briefly last week. Really excited to have you on here. We had a wonderful conversation the other day, and you're a fellow sales guy. We always know how to talk, but got a host of topics we wanted to talk about today. Jake is also a podcaster himself too. He hosts a show on YouTube and Spotify called Real Talk with My Homies, where you can check that out, which is the whole point of doing this. And Jake also has an NIL collective, which I'm very fascinated to hear about. So host of topics to talk about. But I actually think first, Jake, I told you I want to talk about one thing, but another thing is you're a former college baseball player. Is that correct?
Yes, I was a pitcher in college.
So you mentioned that in the interview the other day, which sucks because I used to have this really amazing skill that if I just looked at somebody and they told me they played a sport, I was usually really good about guessing what position they played. Like it was actually kind of scary, my ability to do that. Can't really see you on there, but when you're a pitcher, you were also played another position at some point in time. And for some reason, you look like a third baseman to me.
Nope, there's no world I was a third baseman. I'm a lefty, so that was the
Oh, you're lefty.
Lefty, well, very limited on what I could do.
If I was seeing you in person, I would have been able to see the characters there. Me, I am of that really random small pocket of human beings that exists. I'm a throw righty, bat lefty.
Okay, I'll one up you there. I write with my right hand.
That's wow.
And I shoot a basketball with my right hand.
Okay, so yeah, that really doesn't. That's I know.
I guess I'm ambidextrous, amphibious. I don't know if that's how it works.
Yeah, it's just to some degree of it. I have. It's funny because whenever people see me as a lefty batter, then they're always shocked that I throw with my right hand, and I'm always somebody that pays attention to the other baseball players of that. And I've actually looked it up that it's like 3% of the population falls under that. Guys, and between that, being a ginger, which is also only 3% of the population, and I also have 20/12 visions. I'm just kind of, it's amazing that I'm even existing, basically, from that regards. But some of the most of Hall of Famers or of big time power hitters, a large percentage of them meet that guideline on there. Now, you being a lefty pitcher, though, you would have been my nemesis. My baseball career dried up, but I think partially is because my confidence got shook because the best pitcher in my area was left-handed, and you don't know what you don't know, and I didn't know anything about lefty-lefty splits.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I actually didn't, the feelings are mutual. I was not a big fan of left-handed hitters. I pitched well against them, but just like me, lefties like to crowd the plate, and it got a little under my skin. I can kind of peel back the layers now that I'm not playing anymore. But lefty matchups were not fun on my end either.
Yeah. Sorry, I just got a text from my fiance. I just got engaged this weekend.
Hey, congrats! There we go.
Yeah. Yes. So that's a wild, exciting thing. And then of course I have an auto default message where I say I'm with a customer for when I'm at work, but and then she's like, "Oh, I thought you weren't working," so I had to real quickly do that one. Trying to keep this thing going. So
just keep our head above water today.
But no, so I'm always with this pitcher. So you pitched at what level was it exactly? You said Division III?
Yeah, so I was recruited at the NAIA level, and then they were in the process of transitioning to Division III. So I guess technically my first 2 years I played an NAIA schedule, And then my final 2 years at Spalding University here in Louisville, Kentucky, I was a left-handed pitcher there at the D3 level. So we played a conference schedule, but due to the crossover from NAI to D3, we got put on a probationary period for, I don't know, whatever reason. Not my circus, not my monkeys to figure that problem out. But we had to sit on probation for 2 years, so we were not eligible for postseason. But we were eligible for like regular season standings and stats. And we played a full slate of a conference schedule. So yeah, it was a D3 level down here, and then I was fortunate enough to play a couple years after college as well. We have used to have a super competitive adult league down here that was filled with former college players, former pros, and the occasional, high school star that wanted to kind of come up and play. So I was able to do that for another 3-4 years, and then finally threw my arm out in Battle Creek, Michigan when I was up there playing. So that was fun.
I was well. I'm the opposite. I mean, I knew that there had to be a story associated with that with where you were, unless you were just that obsessed with it. But when you did tell me that story, you did mention exactly the town, exactly where you were when you threw your
Yep.
last pitch.
I'll
So
always remember that. I spiked it about 15 feet into the ground and looked at the dugout and did the whole "we're done." Something happened.
did you at least get a
So
swing on that one, or?
no, no, no. I think it bounced 15 feet and then I think skidded over to the backstop, and we called it a career at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's always the whole thing of that nobody knows when, but unfortunately, it's usually in more cases it's somebody telling you it's over, not you telling them it's over.
Yeah, I will always, yeah, the Moneyball quote
Yep.
that Brad Pitt says. So I'll always hang my hat on the fact that I got to go out on my terms. I didn't have to have somebody tell me I wasn't good enough anymore. I just physically couldn't do it anymore.
That's kind of the way that I look at it because, obviously I was an athlete, but, one of the things that I go on is that, one of my proudest things and something I delve in on this show is that, I was, for lack of a better term, I was a raging alcoholic through my 20s and my 30s, and then eventually, got out of that. And the way that I always
Hmm.
put that is that I went pro in that one and I left it all on the field and I went out on my terms is kind of the way I looked at it. It wasn't the judges. It wasn't loved ones. There was no interventions. It was me just
Yeah.
realizing I physically can't do this anymore. So I can certainly relate with that. And also the way you mentioned the transition from the NIA to excuse me if I brew that up to Division III. If this happened today, do you think you'd be suing for extra eligibility the way that people are these days, or?
I don't know how it would have worked. I mean, we'll get into it later, but I've got an NIL guy that I work with or worked with before I started the collective. I was doing just individual athletes, and he's got like a 7th year of eligibility or something crazy like that. And man, I would have given anything for one more year of eligibility. But
It's
but no, I would have done everything I could to keep playing. I just didn't know that, you know, back when I played, it was '07 to 11. You had 4 years. If you got redshirted, great, but you had 4 years to figure it out and get your playing time in. So it was a very finite window when I was there.
and just like it's one of those things that killed me is I talked to you is that just being on a baseball team is just so much fun.
Oh
Like
yeah, it's the
it,
stories are what matter. It's very rarely do we when we meet up, and I actually met up yesterday for coffee with 2 guys I played with, and we were there for maybe an hour and a half just catching up, and we didn't talk once about something that happened on the field. Never, not even remotely. It was all stories about the clubhouse and the weekends and hanging out together, and just catching up on what we've done over the last few years. But never once did the thought of on the field stuff even come up in conversation.
were you a reliever or starter?
I was a starter 4 years.
Because relievers actually probably have even deeper stories because that's a real lot of
Oh
downtime.
yeah, yeah. They're hanging out down the bullpen. Our relievers were all nut jobs. They were all crazy in their own respectable way. They all had their own little quirks, and yeah, relievers is a different breed of people.
And especially with the left-handed, I will always argue that the best job that ever existed in the world was before they changed the three batter rule in Major League Baseball was the lefty specialist.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
Mostly because as a St. Louis Cardinals fan, we had this guy Randy Choate who was a lefty specialist
Yep.
that couldn't get lefties out. So he made like $7 million to go out there and throw 4 pitches and then leave the
Job
mound. And
security is kind of hard when you can't get one guy out.
yeah, no, but there's, but then the idea that people still would throw you out there, but I just always looked at that as that lifestyle. If you're a single guy, I just can't imagine a better job of that. I get to go out or just even being a pitcher in general, knowing like, okay, I did my work this day. I got the next 3 days. I can do whatever I want on the road, and then come back and do it all over again. Eventually. But
Yeah, I had a short stint as a hitter my freshman year due to some roster constraints because that was part of the transition to D3. We were short on bodies. Some of our big boppers left and transferred out to a D1 school. They're like, well, if they're going to go NCAA, I'm going to finish out my career at least in D1. And I think it was Cleveland State. We lost like three of our big boppers to Cleveland State up in Ohio. And rosters were low, and I ended up finding myself as a DH on the days that I was not pitching. I DH, play right field a little bit. Had a good little career as a hitter, not gonna lie. And yeah, I mean, it's when you're one of the main starters, you you gotta keep focus on what you're doing.
Well, because I mean, you did break the mold of things, is that with being the pitchers, that usually every starting pitcher, with they're right-handed, obviously, is also, with the days they're not pitching, is the starting shortstop and also bats third. On the O lineup is
Yes.
usually the way it kind of went. Although it started kind of fading away a little bit. I started noticing, like, I remember a guy that I knew around the age of 17, 18. That's when they started to like specialize, as far as this guy was on an exclusive team and he only showed up on days that he pitched. And I remember even being his friend going, dude, that's fucked up. You're on the team, but you only show up to the games that you're pitching on, and that's allowed even. Like, people are okay with that. Like, and
Yeah.
did you play other sports, or was baseball just the one that you harnessed in on?
Yeah, baseball was one I just really harnessed in on. I played, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a neighborhood that had a bunch of kids my age, so we would always play basketball, football, in the front yard, but never at a competitive level did I play anything else. I really just focused on the baseball stuff.
But was it that you were a lack of interest in other sports, or was it just lack of, just not as good at the other
I think some
sports?
of it was. I think it was a combination of a lot of stuff. Mom and dad didn't come from a lot. Mom was a high school counselor. Dad was a social worker. So, not a lot of expendable income.
Yeah.
And we went to school probably about 20, 25 minutes from the house. So, finding time for extracurriculars it was really tough. Um, so, baseball, we were able to do it because it was right down the street from my house. The Little League was, 5 minutes from my house. And at some point you excel. And, I wanted to play baseball year round. A lot of it was me too. I just wanted to keep playing and I couldn't play enough.
Well, I
Um,
guess weather-wise down, I mean, I'm in upstate New York, you're in Kentucky. I mean, you're not, you guys still get winter, right? Or, like, I mean, like, not, but
yeah,
like,
winter
are you
winter's
able
still
to
a
actually
thing.
do some outside stuff throughout the year, or, like, or is it just because?
Um, no, I would say from a baseball standpoint, especially a pitcher, because it's, cold temperatures is just brutal on your arm.
Yeah.
Cold temperature wise, I'd say probably between November and February. It's, unless you've got a real good set of sleeves on, it's going to be rough playing outside, baseball wise. I mean, we still did it. We'd still practice. But no, yeah, I mean, probably February to March, or February. I'm sorry, February to November is when it's peak baseball season. And then the dog days of summer, and you're traveling all over the place because everybody's on a travel team now. So you're traveling. We would go south in college when the season started. We would travel south to Mississippi and Alabama for the first few weekends and play a weekend series down there just until we can kind of get to, kind of keep our head above water until March. Then we can start the home games.
And this is always the thing too, is I have, I'm very, very a bitter man up in upstate New York. And as far as that, you mentioned something earlier about being in that league afterwards, where, when through this podcasting journey I've been on, I do hear people mention, like, oh, I've got this guest on because this former, professional grew up in my hometown and stuff like that. We don't really got that around here. Like, we've got,
Yeah.
I think that the biggest claim to fame we got right now is Ian Anderson of the Atlanta Braves was a high draft pick, and he was in a local thing. But, as far as the baseball players that make it out of upstate New York, it just doesn't seem to be, a real high amount of them. Like, it was actually funny. A guy I was friends with, a fraternity brother of mine in college. I forget what Jason Grilly, the reliever.
Yeah, I know that name.
He was for the Pirates. He was from a town outside of Syracuse, New York. And what ended up happening is that some kind of arrangement went on where they ended up, my buddy ended up facing him or whatever, and he always lied and said he got a hit off of him. And then when the guy became an all-star, he eventually had to come clean. He was like, I always liked being able to say I got a hit off of a major leaguer. He's like, once he became an all-star, I had to tell everybody it was a line drive that I hit right at the right fielder. So like, but
My senior year in high school, I don't know if you remember this guy's name from the big leagues. Ben Revere was
oh yeah, Ben
drafted.
Revere, yes. Ben Revere had like he had like literally no power. I think he had all singles one season.
Well,
Or
the
no,
irony is,
he had speed, so he liked it out, but no home runs. I know Ben Revere, yes. He was
yeah. So we played him in the Final Four in the state tournament. He played at a school called Lexington Catholic, and he was drafted first round. Just all around, just phenomenal player. Um, I played against him Final Four in the state, and I pitched that game. We ended up losing, unfortunately. And the running joke that I had, after I licked my wounds, and we lost the game, like I said. The running joke was, yeah, he hit a home run off of me. It landed yesterday. Like he hit one. It was Applebee's Park down in Lexington, Kentucky, and
oh, so he had power against you?
oh yeah, no, he had power in high school. That I mean, you don't get drafted in the first round for just being a singles guy. He had a lot of power in high school. I don't think it translated to the wood bats, but yeah, you put an aluminum bat in his hand, and that guy was a menace. That guy was an absolute stud. And one of the
Well,
best high school players I probably still to this day ever saw or faced.
well, around that age range, though, that's when they still let people use assault weapons at the plate. So, that's also
Yeah,
the
you gotta remember this was early 2000s.
yeah.
So we had the Gen 1X. That was our bread and butter bat. Um, that was what was it, like over pressurized.
Probably like
And
a
it
-9.
no, it was a -3. It was a drop three, and it was over pressurized. They were bursting on impact. Too
Right.
many guys. Too many guys were like it was shrapnel. It was slown back at the pitcher. They ended up replacing it with it was a green bat. So if anybody remembers, it was a green bat called the Gen 1X, and then they replaced it with the Gen 1X Deuce, and that was blue and yellow. And I remember it was that bat was terrible. The Gen 1X, as great as the Gen 1X was, the Deuce was not very good. It was very crappy. Pun fully
Well,
intended.
now I'm in the sad, pathetic world. So you played a little bit of men's league afterwards. Do you do softball or anything at all, or is it all just completely over with?
Yeah, I did. Not anymore. Like I dabbled in co-ed a couple years back, but I did the competitive softball route for a while, and it just got to be a little exhausting. You get married and you want to spend some time with your wife, but they're getting mad at you for not wanting to go to a Cincinnati weekend or Cincinnati trip this weekend, and then hey, we're going down to Evansville next weekend, and it's like, look, guys, I just got married. I just want to hang out with my wife, and there was a little frustration there from the team, and so I opted for a less competitive route, and then just kind of fizzled out when the professional career took off.
Yeah, no, I still that's still what I'm kind of going on with because the thing was is like as I told you before is that baseball is I mean the set here baseball is my favorite sport. It's the only sport I have a favorite team in, which we're going to discuss our favorite teams in a little
Yep.
bit. And I just my father had, kind of saw the writing on the wall there, just knew that I was not going to be just kind of knew I had Vlad Guerrero's plate discipline, but none of Vlad Guerrero's talents. I mean I I'll never forget. Because I played like just the regular local leagues, and then what we had was they had like a Babe Ruth team, which was 13, 14, and 15, and then you had Sandy Koufax, where the best players of that was 13, 14. So I would play a little bit of both. But I just remember a Friday night being in a game where the bases loaded, 2 outs, guy on third, pitcher not throwing strikes or anything, and the guy it definitely was ball four, but the on full counts. And I was thinking, easy ball four, and the guy rang me up for strike three and whatnot. I was furious over it. My dad, kind of knowing the umpire was probably just trying to get out of there because he had a date that night or something, was just like, well, if you don't swing at if you have a borderline pitch, if you swing at it, you can only get upset at yourself, kind of deal. So from that point
Yeah.
on, I don't think I ever struck out looking ever again. I had, and even like when I this is the problem. Like when I take batting practice, like the idea of batting practice is that you're not supposed to swing at every pitch. I don't have the ability to see a ball, like whereas some people take batting practice, they sit there and they wait for good pitches to hit, to kind of work on the pitches they might hit. I see
Yeah.
every pitch as why can't I hit that? So
Oh yeah, I was on borrowed time as a hitter. I knew it was a short-lived stint as a hitter. So yeah, I was the same way. Swinging at everything. It
but
was. I didn't swing at any breaking balls. I don't think I ever swung at a breaking ball in college. I only hit the straight stuff, and I batted 344 my freshman year in college. So, a very respectable average, batted 6 hole, 7 hole. But yeah, if you threw me three straight curveballs, it was good morning, good afternoon, good night, and I was going back to the dugout. I wasn't swinging at any of them.
Well,
But
so
nobody caught on to that. So,
but as a lefty, well, so I mean, I actually at first succeeded with the curveball a little bit, or just curveball, I would say, because as a lefty, most pitchers being righty, they weren't really throwing great curveballs. It was a lot of hanging action,
yeah.
so it was kind of easy. It was the changeup that did me in. If it wasn't the changeup that would have did me, and I never really got to the level of seeing a real slider. The slider would have just obliterated me.
Yeah, if I could detect any little bit of movement to it, I just watched it the whole time. It
But
was,
I was
I think I got confused probably on a couple. I'm sure I got confused on some changeups, but anything slider, curveball, even on a 0-2 count, if they threw a curveball, I knew I was just going to look like a fool and I couldn't read it, so I just let it go, and most of the time it worked.
But now I'm like, this, I'm a glorified slow pitch beer league softball player in the sense of that, I'm the lefty that, I mean, it's just, it's actually fun for me because it's just like, I always just look at the second baseman. I'm like, you poor soul. You don't even, because
Yeah,
I mean, I'm the dead pull hitter. Then they shift me. Then I can hit the other way, and it just becomes this little nightmare. But my ideal swing path, I have no lift in my swing whatsoever. I have no, don't really. I gave up on ever trying to hit home runs, basically, and I just accepted hit line drives. And basically, my standard hit is just a line drive that goes over the second baseman's head and just drops over the right fielder. I'm a low OPS, high average guy. We'll just kind of say, but
yeah.
I think
If I tried to hit it the opposite way, I would kill the pitcher. So I don't even try. Like it is,
I
I have no skill to hit it to the left side.
I did have a little bit of a period of time where I got that was my biggest fear of ever trying to hit the other way on that one was because of you don't want to hit at the pitcher, but where we were going with the bat thing is that I catch sometimes, and most times people say you have playing catcher in softball isn't glorious because you're not really showing any range there. But my ability to get down a tag was actually one of mine. The team that I played on, we had some guys with some hoses on there. So, these guys are coming from, the shortstop and the second baseman. When they would fire one home on a relay, you got to be able to you have somebody you can trust back there. And then I just had the quick hands to be able to get the tag down. But from that spot down there is that you have this pathetic thing of that, like I just like playing because I just enjoy the game or whatever. But you have these guys who basically where I'm going, this people that use illegal bats.
Oh yeah.
Which is just like I just never understood like how pathetic are you exactly that you need to cheat at a recreational event like how.
Well, they want to get that the trophy at the end, I guess. I guess
Which
you want to get that little sporting goods trophy that has a generic baseball player on top. I guess that everybody's got something to live for them. I guess that's what it is.
But like, there's even this worst thing is that you have the guys of that, so obviously you have your regular seasons and like me and my buddies actually, when you mentioned the, the idea with the wife thing, me and our buddies, we got together a softball team where it started off as a social activity. And then we kind of realized, oh shit, we're actually kind of good, to get competitive. But really the reason that the softball team came about is that, hey, everyone needs an excuse to hang out to the wives and girlfriends, basically, like this is,
Yeah.
hey, like we just do this one day a week, it's 3 hours, and that's kind of what's at the place in it. We were actually kind of good, but we would always have this. We played the regular season and we were a really good team. Then all of a sudden come playoffs, it's like, who the hell are these guys? It's like they bring in the ringers and you have these guys who literally are just, they feel like they're professional softball players, but they really just sub in on every team so they can get in on those pictures. And I'm just kind of like,
Hmm.
good for you, man. Good for you. Like there's, uh,
Oh,
it's and that's the whole thing that goes on. Maybe because so I played on a lot of sports teams where we did a lot of losing, and it's one of those things where nobody should want to ever lose, but I do feel like that losing does build a lot of character. So I've always been somebody that once you walk off the field, it's all over. With the teams you played, I mean, obviously, if you made it to the college levels, you were obviously pretty good at your high school level. But were your teams? Did you guys do a lot of winning, or did you have a lot of successes along the way, or what's up with that, or how did you do with that?
yeah. So high school, we were one top in the state every year when I was there. That was the we were a football school in high school, but our baseball program was really good, very talented. I think we went something ridiculous like 36-4 my junior year. So had a phenomenal year that year. Senior year again, like I said, we made it to the Final Four, and then College was actually the opposite. First 2 years, like I said, with the roster constraints, we only won 23 games our first 2 years in college, and these are 40-game seasons. Only won 23 games both years, um, and then we had a coaching change. They unfortunately let our coach go, and I was kind of looking to see, what opportunities were out there, and the new coach pulled me aside and said, "Hey, give me a year. If you don't like it at the end of the year, I'll help you go wherever you want to go." So I bought in, and I'm glad I did. We went 500 my junior year, and then we were one of like 7 schools to win 30 games my senior year. We went like 30, 32-8 or something like that my senior year, and we had the team to make a deep run in an NCAA tournament because we played a lot of the teams that were going to it, and we beat them. But because of that probationary stuff, we weren't able to indulge in it. So we had to do some like USCAA small college World Series tournament, which was fun. I mean, it was a postseason, so postseason is a postseason. Doesn't matter what the acronym is in front of it. But we were able to do that and had a school called Birmingham Southern. If you remember, their story was all over the news last year for them making a run in NCAA tournament at the Division III level. They were closing down their school. They were actually in the process of going back from D1 to Division III when I was there. They joined the Big Sky Conference and played phenomenal. But every in baseball, but every other school, every other sport was a doormat. I mean, they were just getting their teeth kicked in every other sport. So they made the executive decision. I could be getting some of the facts wrong. This was 20 years ago, so don't quote me on all that. But they made the decision to go back to Division III. So they were in that conference as well, or I guess that postseason tournament as well. And I think we finished fifth or sixth in it in the country. So there was 32 teams in it. It was a good little postseason tournament. We had fun. We got to continue to play a little bit longer, but no, the thankfully the winning started back up junior year. But yeah, through high school and travel ball. It was a lot of winning. I was fortunate enough to play on a lot of really good teams and traveled a perfect game a whole bunch, and I traveled to New York for a week and a half to play in a tournament. Was really fortunate in where I got to go and how I got to play growing up.
Whereabouts in New York did you play?
We went. We stayed. Gosh, it was real close to New York City. Only reason I know
Okay.
that is one of the dads took us and like, I mean, I don't know. One dad took like 5 kids, and we all went to Times Square. And we
Okay.
did the whole. I was 16. I do know that. Yeah, we went to Times Square and met all the street vendors trying to sell us fake Rolexes, and just thought it was like the coolest thing in the world. And that was really fun. But yeah, we went up there and played for, I think it was like a 9 or 10 day tournament. So we flew in and took a bus to the hotel and almost got kicked out of the hotel for some shenanigans. That
Of
was
course,
yeah,
16-year-old baseball players, the maturity
yeah.
level of grade schoolers,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, not a lot of us had our parents there. There was only a few chaperones and the coaches, and the coaches spent most of the day at the field scouting the other teams that we were playing because it was a really big tournament. So they really wanted to put a good showing together. So yeah, we were kind of left to fend for ourselves on when during the times we weren't playing.
I've always said that of the major sports, baseball players are probably the least mature, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way
Oh, I know what you
whatsoever. Just,
mean.
just based on the circumstances of it, like nobody just randomly in their very very isolated cases of somebody in their teen years molding into a professional level baseball player. Like most professional level baseball players, they kind of know that that's coming down the pike, from a very early age. So school maybe doesn't take on the biggest meaning, or the biggest, and the fact that it's one of the sports that you don't have to go to college to get drafted for.
Yeah.
But one thing that I kind of just, thought that just popped in my head when you're doing all that is that I liked how you could mention that, you finished like, fifth or sixth in something, and, still feel proud about that. I feel like that we're losing that, or this is just something that I've had frustration on all levels of sports is
Hmm.
this ring culture where if you're not first, you're last. It's really turning to Ricky Bobby right now. Like, we just had
Yeah.
the college football playoffs where we know that Notre Dame and Ohio State just finished the year in the championship game, but I don't believe, do they even still do an end of the year poll? As far
Yeah, I
as like
think they do, but I mean, it's pretty chalk. Like,
the
the
fact
team
that I
that
don't
won
even
is
know it exists,
one.
though, like it's
That's
kind of like
fair.
you're seating on there. Like, there used to be something where, okay, like, everyone played their New Year's game and, obviously we cared about who the national title was. but there was some pride. There are people from the mid 90s that can probably say, hey, I was on that team that finished in the top 5, and there was some glory to that one. Now it's again, it's just like the Ricky Bobby. If you ain't first, you're last, which there is some glory to that. But I just kind of look at that, that's one of the things where, as an avid sports fan, sports are kind of losing me a little bit in that sense where it's like, if Jalen Hurts, all these guys who haven't won a ring because of Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady, they're just trash now, apparently. In NFL.
It's a zero-sum game. It's it's a ones and zeros. Look at baseball alone. It's home runs, strikeouts, and walks. Those are the 3 results that are most likely now for really anyone batting 2 through 7 in a lineup. You don't have any teams that have been constructed in a get them on, get them over, get them in setup. It's all we're just gonna jog around the bases. That's the mindset of everybody now because that's what sells.
And it does, and it is, but there is still kind of like, I look at, baseball is always one of those things. I understand is that I call myself a baseball apologist, where it's always funny that when people find out that I like baseball more than the other sports, they want to tell me all the reasons they don't like it, and their logic is always so terrible. I always love to argue with them, like, oh, it's too slow. I'm like, a baseball game takes less time than a football game. Like there's actually more periods. I find watching a football game, unless you have money on it, to be incredibly boring at this point now. College, I don't necessarily as much, because with college, and you're in SEC, or you're not in SEC country, actually. Kentucky is there, but you're in Louisville, which is ACC, I believe.
Yeah, Louisville's ACC. I'm a Kentucky fan, though, so I'm SEC country.
And I've been to Lexington, and I've, been in that environment where it's just like, I would say that, if we were to really broadcast to the rest of the world our best sports culture, I look at it as that college football is on par with competing with like English Premier League level of passion, or the way that people are about soccer in other parts of the world. I think that the college atmosphere is great, but now even college is losing it with me. And this is actually, I'll kind of segue into now our NIL talk. Not that you're part of the big, you're on a small level, as we kind of discussed, which not, but I do hate this idea of that. It's not NIL that I have the biggest problem with. Everybody should get what they're worth. It's the transfer portal for me that's really killing college sports to me, because, you used to have this team that makes this run at things, and, it's like, oh, look out for them next year. And now it's become more wild and crazy than professional sports.
Oh, absolutely. And I believe, and I may be in the minority of this, I think a lot of people don't like how the transfer portal operates as a whole. I think it should exist. You've got coaches that are able to leave whenever they want. They can leave next week if they want to, but then they're gonna, a lot of coaches are gonna harp and complain that the players need to be held to a different set of rules. So I think I'm in a what I would say is the minority on that. Is I do believe that players should be able to leave and go wherever they want to go. I don't think they should be able to do it every year. I think that's a big problem. I think that's probably more what you were alluding to. But yeah, if you're in a position where you get told one thing on the recruiting trail, that you're going to be at least one of the top 2 guys. Let's just pick quarterback because it's an easy conversation. There's only one quarterback on the field. Even if you're really good, not many teams that I even know of run the 2 quarterback system anymore. It's just
you have 2 quarterbacks,
happen.
you got no quarterbacks.
Exactly. So they're gonna leave. They should leave. They need to go find somewhere to play. You've got not just in the NIL world, you've got a finite window. Just in your eligibility world, you have a finite window of how you can perform. So not everyone is. Who was it? Mark Sanchez, who was like a backup for everybody and still somehow made it to the NFL. I think he's
Matt
kind
Castle.
of Matt Castle. That's who it is. Yeah, he was a backup for everything and somehow still made it to the league. But yeah, again, using quarterback because it's easy. If you're the guy in front of you is just good enough to not give up the spot, you get out, go find somewhere you can play. Like I went to college based on playing time. That was the number one priority to me, was playing time. I didn't want to sit. I wanted to play. Yeah.
No, I can relate with that, because I'm somebody. So my athletic career, I was a lacrosse player. Went out for it in college. I'm an undersized guy. I was learning a new position, and I didn't make it on the freshman, my freshman year when I went out for the fall ball. Then coach wanted me to come back out in the springtime to do it, but my first semester in college, let's just say the grades didn't go so well. So I kind of realized, as I've often said in college, you can do 2 out of 3. You can be academically successful, you can be athletically successful, you can have a social life. I was really only good at one of those for a while. You can imagine which one that was. But I was also kind of looking at it as, look, if I, if I wasn't on the team, if I didn't make it, off the first cut there, if I'm just going to be on the team, you're basically telling me I'm still not going to be playing anytime soon. And I'm, I knew that my level of interest in going to just practice was not going to be there necessarily, but we have lost the idea of that. We can't call it student athlete anymore almost. And I kind of almost like the idea of, and this would probably almost be beneficial for you, but I almost like the idea of people seceding from the NCAA. Like, let's just make it a club sports, and that way make it actually professional in a way. I mean,
Yeah.
really, what does the NCAA do?
Nothing. They can't. They can't. You can't
used
put
to
the genie
police
back in the
things,
bottle.
but now there's nothing to police.
Yeah, and again, maybe in the minority here, I think it works best when there's no rules. Just let capitalism prevail.
Right.
At some point, these businesses that are working with these players, there's got to be a return. If there's not a return, they're going to stop eventually. The problem will solve itself. You'll have the few off brand people like your Phil Knights and your Oregons. Like he could dump as much money into Oregon as he wanted to. Not going to affect him financially one bit. But 99.9% of these guys who are air quotes buying the team, buying players, at some point there's no return, and why are you going to keep putting money into it?
That's
For
what I was
access,
going.
that doesn't work. Access is great, but like you didn't get rich because of frivolously spending money. You got rich for a reason. Generally, it's because you're pretty good with money. So, yeah, I think the problem fixes itself, and I think once you start putting guardrails up, once you start putting guidelines up, it makes it just puts us right back into the situation we were in, where there's too many rules that people have to follow. Like back when I was in college, it was you could not the biggest thing that was going around was at the Division 1 level is you couldn't have cottage cheese for bagels. That was an impermissible benefit, was having a condiment for a bagel.
Are
There
you
were stories
kidding me?
written, yeah, there's stories written about it. You can go back and look and find them, across the board. It was ridiculous what these kids were subjected to.
I remember hearing one. Well, I used to listen to Mike and Mike back in the day, and like Mike Golick, when he would take out his kids' friends, he couldn't pay for it because he was a Notre Dame
Yeah,
alumni. So it's like it could be that he's influencing, things, and it's just like I'm a big spirit of law, not letter of law guy.
yeah,
Like that's always kind of the way I look at it. And yeah, removing those constraints. I mean, I started proposing this question a while ago, and one position in particular is that I started kind of saying with the way that the NFL devalues the running back position, which maybe that's going to be on the upswing, or they're going to change that. But I was like, a good SEC running back, there might be a better career in there. But now we're kind of paving this way where we might be making an idea where people can play college sports as a legitimate profession, which is just kind of where I'm like, all right, we've
it's kind
jumped
of
the shark
wild.
on this one, where it's like this is meant to be a period of time, but now with different eligibility rules being out there, different pay structures, and again, I'm all for getting what you're worth out of everything. It's just that we've lost a little bit of the spirit of this. I kind of want to say, and now to the point where, you mentioned something earlier too about, you only really focused in on one sport coming to similar means. We've really kind of made it at the lower levels of sport where I don't know what we've lost the purity of sports in some sense. It's kind
Yeah.
of all turned into a business, even on the youth end. Like, you also mentioned the travel baseball team thing. And it's kind of like, are we really getting the best player, or are we discouraging more good players from playing because they come from limiting resources? I almost kind of look at.
Yeah, I think some of the travel ball stuff is interesting, and it's definitely gotten, I don't want to say bad, but it's definitely not good where it is now. Back when I played, it was, again, this is like early 2000s. Like my dad we still had a house phone on the wall. My dad randomly gets a phone call from some guy who he's never met before saying, "Hey, we think your son's really good. We'd like him to be on our travel baseball team." Like my dad had no idea what that was. Like it was a foreign language to him, and it was really a foreign language to me. I'm like, "What do you mean? I play baseball at J-Town Little League. Like that's where I play." He was like, "Well, this team is apparently, they travel and they go places in different cities." I was like, "That sounds freaking awesome." And it was like hundreds of dollars, like nowhere close to what it is now, but it was, hundreds of dollars to play together, and the team was fine, but it was kind of really the inception of travel ball in our region was really around that time, and yeah, it was a lot simpler. I played on one team. We probably played, we played a lot of games, but not to the schedule that some of these kids have now. And I still got to dabble in rec league too. Rec league is dead. There is the Little League World Series is, here's a soundbite for you. Little League World Series is a sham. I mean, it's all a bunch of travel kids. They just play on a little league
Oh,
to appease the guidelines and the rules so that they can get, a team to Williamsport.
well, at this point now is, I mean, they're basically they're importing, or they're basically, finding ways to get kids from different areas to be affiliated with other teams, where it becomes almost like, your
Hmm.
all-star team from, not just from, one of the beautiful things about the Little League World Series is that these kids are all in the same town, kind of thing, like I think of like what was it? Todd Frazier in Tom's River, New Jersey. That was like actually like
Hmm.
Tom's River, New Jersey was always a program that was there, and now it could be all over the place. I mean, we had a little league locally here that, people would do the thing where it was basically a collective all-star team, because they would have kids use their grandparents' address, so that everybody could
Yeah.
be in this neighborhood, be on there, where it was like, okay, like kind of building that on there and kind of losing the spirit of it a little bit. But so let's talk about your NIL collective, because you're not someone that, what you're doing is a good thing. You're doing more of a community thing. You're kind of
Yes.
incorporating local sports, and I'm all for that, because it's attaching, and your Division 3 mostly, you're saying, or
Yeah.
lower
Yeah. We're all
level.
we're all Division 3. It's specific to one school. So Spalding University, Eagles Nest Collective, Eagles Nest NIL Collective, EaglesNestNIL.com, however, wherever you want to do it. We're on Instagram and Twitter as well, but really EaglesNestNIL.com is the best place to find us. And um, the biggest thing was once NIL became legal, and we can argue over the merits of it in a different time, but it's here, it's not going anywhere. I knew I had to be involved. How do I get involved? How do I figure it out? I'm a realtor by trade. I work entrepreneur by trade, work in real estate since 2018. And how do I get involved? So I started partnering with a couple kids out of that level, and for me, it was very niche. I if a kid's from St. Louis, Missouri, it doesn't help me. I was very specific on what I needed. I needed a local kid, want access to his friends, family, potentially him in the future, want access to those people through social media. So would partnered with him and had a little bit of success. Partnered with another kid, had some success. Added on a soccer girl, added on a track and field girl, got another soccer girl, added two more baseball guys, and we just continued to kind of grow the brand. And then at some point, it kind of got to a point where it was too much. And I said, okay, we just need to just start, a full-fledged collective. So with the support of the university, the athletic director, and I played with the head coach of the baseball program. Um, we got the collective off the ground, and like most collectives, when you think of them, you're thinking of the Division 1 level. You think of cars and thousands of dollars, and autograph signings, and they go to a car dealership and they sit there for 4 hours and they sign autographs. Or they go to a restaurant and they sit there for 3 hours and they take photos and sign headshots and all that. And that's great, and I have no qualms with those guys doing that, but there's still a market on the smaller scale. There's a lot of small businesses, thousands of businesses that would love to be involved in NIL, but they don't have the budget for a quarterback at the University of Louisville. They don't have the budget for a point guard at Kentucky. Um, so how do we fill that void? And there's money to be made on the Division 3 level for these guys, and that's really what we focused on, is giving them experience, adding a little bit of financial literacy to it as well, trying to just give them a little bit of pocket money so that they can go out on the weekends and buy dinner for their girlfriend. It's not life changing money, but it'll be life changing experiences for them. So we've partnered with a couple companies here locally. We're going to do a really cool experience next month with the guys at a new esports arena that's coming live here in Louisville. I'm friends with the owner. So we're gonna get the guys in there, let them play video games against each other, let them get on Call of Duty, well, Fortnite, whatever they're playing, college football, and just give them a day there. Let them have some fun, unwind. That's not something they could normally do um, if they were just a student at the school and not a student athlete through the collective. So try to give them some experiences. We've partnered with we're going to partner with an apparel company here that makes baseball equipment. Get them a bunch of free stuff, and in exchange for some social media stuff through the guys. But that's really the biggest ask is through the local businesses. Whether it's money or stuff. We're talking $25 for a post. We're talking $100 for something, or 150 for this. Like, nothing that involves a comma. None of these business transactions are going to involve stuff. So, and for me, it's a great way for me to reconnect with some of the alumni. It's a great way for me to reconnect and maybe hopefully funnel a little bit of business back into the real estate world for me, which is where I actually do, provide for my family. But it's also lastly and most importantly, it's a way for me to give back to a university that if I didn't have the stable of baseball, I don't know what my college career would have looked like. It really kept me focused and made sure that I graduated. Really made sure that and again, by graduating, I was able to find myself into a nice career with a good salary, and then thankfully gave me the tools to be kind of an entrepreneur as well and pursue those things that I'd like to do. So started a couple businesses, I've sold them. And thankfully I've had some success with that. But yeah, the collective is really exciting to partner with some of the local businesses and give them a reason to support. We're here. Spalding is very much entrenched in Louisville's history, um, and the players that play there, they love Louisville just as much as probably more than some of the guys on the University of Louisville, because a lot of those guys are transplants. They came here from California, came here from New York, Michigan, and they're going to leave once their time is done. But these athletes are going to they were born and raised here. They're playing here. They're going to raise their families here, and they're going to get a job here, and they're going to contribute to the economy in some point. So it's all the more reason to support these guys.
Well, and I'd imagine too is that one thing I would say is that not even in the money, what you're doing is you're providing opportunities in the sense of that
Hmm.
you're, like you mentioned before, you kind of built your business and your entrepreneurial off of your networking. So one
Yes.
thing I look at is I can tell that you're a good guy in the sense of that is that if you're able to, the way that you conduct yourself on the field, I feel like you can tell an awful lot about somebody about how they play sports. And the
Hmm.
fact that you're able to build relationships off of your playing days lends me to think that you were a likable teammate. You played with honor and integrity and all of that good stuff. But also the idea too is that, for these kids, I mean, let's face it, they're not going pro in sports. They're not getting rich off the money you're providing for them. But what you are doing is you are putting them in the same room as business owners where, you can help strike relationships that way. And I'm sure that that's probably rewarding for you a little bit. Also, you might be meeting some athletes that might be people that are people you want to do some work with here and there. And that's kind of I think is a great idea of, just putting people together and putting them in the same room and giving people a chance to get to know each other. Like as somebody right now, I mean, I'm kind of in this weird personal spot now where thinking about making a career change and whatnot. And I'm from one area. I lived and went to college in another area for a long period of time. Now I'm back in an area. My professional network is all basically 200 miles away. And I'm finding the differences of that, just trying to cold go into an employment setting and just handing them an application and just saying, hey, it's not the same as where I had
Hmm.
pre-existing relationships before. So, I hate the expression, but it's true. Well, I expand upon it. It's not what you know, it's who you know. But also on top of that, it's not who knows what you know kind of deal, that kind of to
Yeah.
circle it back there. So that's awesome that you're doing that for people. And, again, it sounds like it's a passion project, but it, helps, to keep things going. And, it's all kind of feeds into the business, little bits here and there, I would say, probably correct.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we take 10% off the top from a management fee. That's pretty standard across the board with collectives. Some take a little bit more, not egregiously more, but 12 and a half, 15% off the top. And for me, like it's not a revenue stream through the collective. The 10% I take off the top is what I call, and my board. I've got a board of directors that I have to report to as well, that I've created, and want to keep the guardrails up and make sure we're not doing anything egregious. But that's my slush fund. Like when these guys, good example, when we go to this gaming lounge, if I don't have the ability to find a sponsor to get us some pizzas and some waters, like then I can just use my slush fund to buy the pizzas and waters myself and just get the guys fed for the day. I don't want this to become a second revenue stream for me. The money, I want to put it back into it as much as possible. But yeah, it is absolutely a networking opportunity for me. It's a double-edged sword. I can network with businesses here locally. I can help the guys. I met with a guy yesterday, and he called me an old reference. Did you ever watch the show Friday Night Lights,
Yeah,
the
a little
TV
bit.
show?
Yeah.
So he called me Buddy Garrity. He said, "Oh, you're Buddy Garrity now." I was like, "Yeah." I mean, that's an oddly specific reference, but yeah, I mean, like when I show up, I want these guys to like. I want to be the fun uncle. Like when I show up, these guys know that something good's going to happen. And that's I don't bring bad news. I only bring good news. The coach's job is to deliver bad news. When I show up, it's some free stuff or a new experience or somebody coming in, like I've got a brand coach that I'm working with to hopefully come in and talk to these guys about also expanding their social media presence. There's a lot of money to be made in a short window of time. Let's maximize that and get kind of some brand, a little more brand. Yourself is your brand. You've got your own brand. How do we maximize that and get that in front of as many people as possible? So get him in there to talk to the guys, 20, 30 minutes after a practice or something. Or maybe there's a rain out day where they just get some cage work done, and so we'll meet with the pitchers, and then maybe tomorrow we'll meet with the hitters, and vice versa. So we'll kind of we're still trying to figure out everything. We're gonna crawl before we're gonna walk before we can crawl.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, we're gonna crawl the other way
Yeah,
around. We're gonna
yeah.
crawl. We're
I do
gonna
that all
crawl
the time.
before we can
Which is
walk.
weird because I say that all the time. I heard it the right way.
Yeah. It's that saying.
Yeah. But that's awesome. So now and then also you mentioned, so that's just a little bit of a side thing that you do here, but also another side thing you do here is you have a podcast, Real Talk with My
hmm
Homies, which is a play on your your life in real estate. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the brokerage that I'm a part of is called Homepage Realty. It was founded back, I guess, 12-ish years ago, under the concept of like the owners wanted to be, and I'm not one of the owners. I'm just a 1099 realtor there. Um, our brokers wanted to be the home page for when you went to go look for a house, so they called it Homepage Realty. Um, so the podcast, which is produced through the brokerage, which is awesome. I have a media department, videographer, producer. It's phenomenal. I'm so blessed to have that as a support staff.
Oh, you don't know the
Yeah,
half of it of someone who does all this
oh,
on his own.
I have no idea. I am ignorant on so much, and so blessed to have what I have as a support system. But yeah, it's real talk with my homies. Again, play on homepage, play on homes. So I only focus on realtors that are at the brokerage, but then we also focus on entrepreneurs, small business owners. Our most recent guest, this episode will go out probably in a couple weeks. Like I had a ghost hunter on. They just wanted to have conversations with people I find interesting and fascinating. But from a real estate side, we have people on that are super successful, and it's kind of a cheat code for me. I get to sit them down for 30 minutes and ask them, you know, some hard hitting, not really hard hitting questions, but you know what I mean. I get to ask them some inquisitive things about, what makes you successful, and try to kind of extrapolate things that they do that maybe I don't, and kind of add that to my book of business as well. Maybe incorporate this into how I operate, or maybe kind of integrate this into my CRM, or do things like that. And some of it's a little, industry specific, but we also do a lot of like icebreaker questions at the beginning. We try to goof off for the first 10, 15 minutes, and then the last half of it's really kind of the meat and potatoes of it. But as far as an entrepreneurship stuff, I mean, we've had an owner of a wallet company on that's got a rocket ship strapped to it. I've got an old friend from high school. She was on an episode of The Mole season 2 on Netflix. So
Okay.
we had her on. Another realtor I work with was on Wrestlers on Netflix. The OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling, Netflix show. Great show, by the way, if you haven't seen it. If you have any interest in professional wrestling or just like that style, it was the same guys that did Last Chance U and Cheer. They did Wrestlers, and one of my buddies was on there, so had him on and talked about that, talked about wrestling history as a whole. But yeah, it's been a really fun experience, and I enjoy it, man. It's really cool. We record every other Friday at 10 a.m. We're in the process of building out a studio for it, because we've had a good amount of success in year one, which was 2024. So 2025, we've got a studio being built. We tested out a bunch of equipment yesterday, not yesterday, over this weekend. Tested out a bunch of new equipment. We do a 3 camera setup. I mean, we do everything.
Oh,
There's camera changes, and yeah, it is a very, very, very well produced show. And like I said, I cannot thank my guys enough. And the episode coming out this Friday, I don't know when this releases, how you release your episodes, but the next episode coming out for me, we've got a really special treat for our producer that we did on it, because he is, he's the Jamie of our podcast world. So very fortunate to have him. So we gave him a nice little gift, and that reveal is on the next episode.
yeah, the podcasting thing is all. I mean, unfortunately for somebody who's trying, everybody has a podcast now, but I encourage everybody to have a podcast in the sense. For me, I've used this kind of realm was that, like I said, I mentioned I used to be a guy that closed down the bar just about every day of the week and whatnot. And, I mean, I'm over the aspect of what kept me there a little bit, but one of the reasons I always liked going back was the social aspect of it because, every day, if you're an outgoing person like me, I was making a new best friend every night kind of thing, just
Yep.
go to Fight Club, single serving friends or whatever. So I do enjoy the networking that I do with podcasting to be able to have conversations with people like yourself and get to know people on a different level and actually, really have an undivided conversation, not just be somebody that we just chat, with little messages online or anything like that. So
Oh, absolutely. It's been so much fun to do this, and I'm not going to be a professional podcaster. I'm not going to be a radio host. Like I have no interest in that. My job's real estate. I'm an entrepreneur. The podcast is we use a product. And I don't know if you use this or not, but it's really really cool. It's called Opus Clips,
okay.
and a lot of really successful podcasters use it.
No, that's the other thing too. I learn a lot, with all of us little guys out there, like on our own, we're not much, but we start learning things.
Yeah.
I never heard of that one.
So
I'll be
so
sure to
you
check it
yeah,
out.
you can upload your video to it, MP4 format, or I'm sure there's other ways that you can do it. But it chops it up and spits out all the little reels for you. So you've got your little 60-second reels. We've been going for almost an hour now. My episodes are 30 minutes long, and I get 20 to 25 shorts that it creates for me, and then I upload those slowly throughout the week. Again, just to gain traction on the podcast and kind of redirect people to it, but also, if you've got a guest on that says something really awesome, how do you get them to watch the 47th minute of your podcast? Well, sometimes
Right.
that's tough, but now you can kind of crop it up and put that clip out.
Unfortunately, probably the biggest clip that I produced out of any of my podcasts. I had a gentleman on that owned this really kind of unique bar in the Detroit area. And his story was how at his bar they set a guy and a girl up, and then a couple of years later, that guy ended up killing the girl.
Oh,
Which
yeah, I
so
don't
yeah,
have any
that
stories like that.
yeah, no, I mean, but that was kind of like, it's like I'm somebody that's hard to shock, but as he's telling the story, I'm kind of like, where's this going? Then he just, it was a guy who was a brother of a former NFL player, actually,
Yeah.
too. So that was all kind of tied in. So I do know that was one I personally sought out, went through the transcript and clipped out. But yeah, no, I have an AI generator and it doesn't quite get me the clips I want to. So that was really invaluable advice I just got from you right there. I'll
Yeah, no,
definitely be sure
I
to check
love
it
it.
out.
No free ads, but here's a free ad, Opus. It's a great little product that they have. I think it's like $20 a month, so inexpensive. You upload it, takes maybe you upload it in the background.
Mm,
It's got all kinds of stuff, man. It's a really cool product. Like I said, I'm not getting any kickback from them. This is just a genuine, honest feedback about the product, and I think it's a really good thing for podcasters
Well, it
to
sounds like again,
utilize.
like like the general. It's consistent with you. You're not, you've got your thing that you're in it for the money for. This sounds like more of just like a helping other people out kind of ordeal that you're
Oh,
also there.
absolutely.
So, and then the last thing I wanted to kind of tackle with you a little bit is that we did discuss you are an LA Dodgers fan.
I am. I am.
I know
It's
so a guy
heavy
from
as the head
Louisville,
that wears the
Kentucky. I need to
crown.
hear how a guy from Louisville, Kentucky ended up as an LA Dodgers fan.
So it's not as exciting as you would think. It's a pretty boring story, but like most kids, you are a fan of who your dad's a fan of, right?
Okay,
Your dad likes the team. My dad
that's
likes
how I
the
ended up a
Dodgers,
Cardinals
so I
fan.
like yeah, I like the Dodgers. My dad likes the Dodgers. His dad liked the Dodgers as well. His dad liked the Dodgers because of Pee Wee Reese, who's from Louisville, played for the Brooklyn Dodgers.
There it is.
So easy connection. His dad liked the Dodgers. His dad played my grandpa played semi-pro baseball, kind of all over, and then of course, so my dad likes the Dodgers. Then I have no reason to not like the Dodgers. And when I was in high school, I modeled my mechanics after Kevin Brown. So I'm not a front runner. I've been a legitimate Dodgers fan for a long time, but I modeled my mechanics as a pitcher off of Kevin Brown. Granted, he was, I'm left-handed, but it was still the same. But yeah, Dodgers through and through, man. This
Yeah.
year was fun. This coming year is going to be even more fun as the evil empire has risen.
Yeah, the evil empire of the East Coast now. I mean, which I honestly believe is a good thing for baseball. And like, I'm somebody who, again, like I have, which is funny is that my family started off Dodgers fans actually, and then
Hmm.
now we became Cardinals fans. The story behind that, allegedly, I maybe have glorified the story a little bit, but I remember asking my dad because my father was a Cardinals fan. I ended up asking, how that came to be, and he had mentioned something about his father was a Brooklyn Dodgers fan, and then when Brooklyn went out to the West Coast, St. Louis was always the most West Coast city. And the way that I've told the story is that my grandfather said, well, baseball only goes as far west as St. Louis. Plus, they were able to hear games on AM radio on KMOX would reach out this way. So that kind of happened there. And I do know that feeling of that when you have been a fan of a team the entire time, like growing up, for the most part, the Cardinals were not good. And then all of a sudden, when the Cardinals had this wave of success in the 2000s and up until recently, I was like, oh, it must be great being a Cardinals fan. I'm like, yo, there were some really shitty years in there. And like, again, I'm not somebody that lives and dies by my sports teams. If anytime that I ever acted really like the Cardinals losing mattered to me, it was just an excuse to be an asshole, really, was kind of the way I looked at it. But all I ask of a baseball team is just keep me interested. But I ended up finding myself following the Dodgers around a little bit this year because, Shohei Ohtani, I just look at as being this, once in a generation. I mean, once in a lifetime phenom. I mean, it's tough to put into terms what he would be like if he was in another sport. It's like, oh yeah,
I mean, I don't think a LeBron comparison's not fair. Love or hate LeBron, that's again conversation for another day. But at the worst, LeBron is a top 3 player of all time.
Right.
Patrick Mahomes is great, but I think when Shohei's done with his career, I think you're going to look back and comparing the two is going to be laughable. It's uncanny how good he is at such an early age, and kind of just how, not in a bad way, but how ignorant he is to just the world around him. I mean, so much to the point that he gets exploited by his interpreter for millions of dollars. Like, he is just so just baseball focused. Like, he's got his interpreter stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars from, and he doesn't even know it. Like, I'm just here to play baseball. Like,
I think
money's
that's the
great,
thing.
but
I am so glad. So I am probably been one of the most biggest proponents of that from the word go on this one. I've always been in denial that he was ever involved in any gambling. It drives me insane. Because one, it'd be one thing if people's jokes were funny, but they're not even funny. They're just like,
yeah,
as somebody who has a background as a comedian, it's like, okay, if you're going to be funny, at least be original. It's like, okay,
yeah,
cool. This is the same comment out there. And I'm also just saying, hey, like, there's this Department of Justice report where it's like, have people lost their collective minds that they think that the U.S. government is also in on this cover up? Or it's like,
yeah. The
Occam's
FBI
razor to
doesn't
me is somebody
care.
who has it's all the pocket watch. When people talk about this money going, like, I'm like, I don't think he quite concerns himself in studying in the background of him. And I would say that if I was able to generate the income or the startup capital of this one thing that got my channel where, I got, I'm not like I'm like really successful or anything like that. I mean, me getting to 200 some odd followers, because I don't really like having any friends and family a part of this, because, it's not what I'm trying to seek out there. It's not a popularity contest. I like to get the merits of actually earning people's, viewership. But when I would take short videos of, I started doing this whole little journey last summer where I started going to different baseball games, different stadiums, and I started getting my seats based on where I could film good videos of at-bats of certain players. And once I took any videos of Ohtani, all of a sudden videos that maybe would get 1,000 views are all of a sudden getting 20,000 views. And I'm looking at the demographics, and it's all just Japan and South Korea. I mean, they're embracing, their love of baseball is, so much more intense than America at this point, I would say. And I was just saying, if I had the money if I could follow the Dodgers around for a season and just literally, like, I could post Ohtani running out a ground ball, 20,000 views. It's just like, and like, if I was to keep doing that, I really feel like there's something on there. But I like the idea that the Dodgers, every baseball team has the money. There were saying that people are ruining, that the Dodgers are ruining baseball. And I'm like, no, I think they're going to bring baseball back to life, because one, they're showing that, they're manipulating the California tax system a little bit, which, we'll see how much longer that one goes. But I would love to see, every owner in baseball has the money to spend that the Dodgers are spending. They just choose not to. And at some
Absolutely,
point,
it is. When did we start favoring billionaires over millionaires? Like, I mean,
thank
when did
you.
that become the thing? When did that become like, oh yeah, we're gonna side with the billionaire who really doesn't care about me, but the millionaire who actually does, care to some degree about what fans feel about him. Like, that's just a wild take to me. It's just a wild stance to, weird hill to die on.
They're the reason that you're watching. And again, like, it's laughable to people, because again, like, people are always wondering, oh, baseball players are making this much money. It's like, yeah, that's how lucrative of a deal it is. And I've been on the outs a little bit with the Cardinals since around COVID time, where our cheap owner decides to say, oh, baseball is not as profitable as you think it is. And when he said that, I was looking around my living room and I counted 14 St. Louis Cardinals logos. And I'm like, well, where is this money going? Like,
Yeah.
don't tell me there's something being made into it. And I'm hoping that encourages everything. But also, I go from the sense of that, hey, baseball is an amazing sport in the sense of that, the Dodgers have only won, 2020, it is what it is. But
Yeah.
as of right now, they've only won one World Series. And as somebody who grew up in New York during the height of the Yankees' evil empire, I always bring up it wasn't the teams that they bought that won World Series. It was the teams that they raised that won World Series. And it does make it more interesting where everybody has a villain. I always even use, you can look at the ratings with Super Bowls. I always made the comparison of the New England Patriots to Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men, as far as he gives that speech about going, as much as you hate admitting it, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. Because the way
Yeah.
that Super Bowl viewership, everyone was watching to either watch the Patriots win or watch them lose. And we kind of have that going on a little bit with our Chiefs, but that's always the funny thing when everyone says baseball needs a salary cap because it's getting too uncompetitive. Meanwhile, the Chiefs have made 7 straight conference championships in a league that has a salary cap,
Mm-hmm.
so it's just, I don't think it fixes anything, but that's,
No, I
I'm
mean,
looking.
if we have a salary cap, I think it only just you're going to see you people want legacy like that. We are in a legacy world now, and you're just going to see more guys flock to LA. You're gonna have guys that take a pay cut to go to LA. Like they want the World Series rings because at the end of the day, that's going to give them their best chance of making money post career. But also, on that one off, maybe they make it to the Hall. Maybe they get retired. Their number gets retired. They make it to the Hall of Fame. But World Series seems to be kind of that barometer of were you a good player or not. And it was always the 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 argument for Dan Marino. It's like, yeah, but he couldn't win the big one. Couldn't win the Super Bowl, or that was always kind of the argument. And it's at the end of the day, just to kind of circle back to how we talked about that zero sum of every either one winner and all losers. There's nothing in between. That's what guys want. They want the ring, and if the Dodgers give them the best chance to win a ring, that's the route they're going to go. It's everybody thinks that they're just like kicking the can down the road with that deferred money, but like the way it's worded and the way it's written out, they've already got that money. It's in an interest bearing account. That money's already been put aside. It's there for when he retires. They can't do it without putting that money there. They have to designate and earmark that money, for the compensation. That's part of the downfall of it that nobody wants to talk about because it's just like, oh, Tony's making, $7.25 an hour while he's playing baseball.
Which he's totally fine with, by the way. And that's really what I mean. Just I'm a fan of genius business. Basically, what the Dodgers did is that they gave themselves. I remember someone breaking it down. They gave themselves like 18 months to basically generate X amount of dollars from the Japanese markets to then invest into some account that would then pay out Otani there. And they really just
Mhm.
did some genius business. And also, damn them for making a great destination for the next. I mean, like the next hotbed of baseball players is Japan. It's not,
Yeah, oh,
you're,
absolutely.
you're
Yeah, I
always going
mean,
to
you
have the
you got
Dominicans and all the, the Central American countries or, but that's the next area there. And like, because of Otani, I've become, immersed in the culture of baseball over in Japan. And I'm like, I'm just starting looking at this going, I think these guys got it right more than we do.
oh, yeah, they added Roki this year, so they had Yamamoto added last year. Haesung Kim, they added him at second base. He's Korean, but I mean, he's still over there in that same region. And yeah, I mean, it is you're building a whole new crop of baseball fans that are gonna pay thousands of dollars for merchandise.
And
They're gonna get that return on investment. It's gonna happen.
And then meanwhile, while they're spending all this money there, it doesn't mean the Cardinals have to just give away Tommy Edman for a ham sandwich, which is
Mhm.
who was one of the most integral players of that of their run this year.
He's gonna be our everyday center fielder. He's gonna be that
He's one of
starting
those
center fielder for
guys
the
that
Dodgers.
I always said I'm like you're never gonna get total fair value for a guy like Tommy Edman unless you watch the baseball. Which I will say this one, as I sent you the one clip there, and you got a bargain on Jack Flaherty. I guess it's 17 and a half. He's going to be a good pitcher in Dodger Stadium, but not the mental fortitude to win a big game on the road. I'll tell you.
No, 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 and as much as I really enjoyed watching him, I feel like he was a Dodger fan growing up. So that's always something special where,
The
he
pitch for
he
your
was a
favorite team.
yeah, and help him win a World Series too. It's not just play for him. It's, win a World Series with your favorite team. That's incredible. And, I'll always be grateful for him, and he self-admittedly, wasn't the greatest outing. Um, but it was just enough. And as a job as a starting pitcher, do just enough to keep your team in the game. That's your job. Keep them in the game.
Well, I mean, he dueled game one with Garrett Cole. I mean, kept them in that game enough, which, I mean, they end up winning on the Freddie Freeman, which is actually going to be, I'll always remember now, one of my first dates with my now fiance. We've kind of moved things kind of fast or whatever, was during game one. She's not from America. So I have this whole thing where I'm out with a girl during game one of the World Series where I have to eventually I'm staring at my phone enough. And then she was just like, hey, if you want to watch something, you can. And I turn on the game right when Freddie Freeman hits the grand slam. So I always have that. But, Jack Flaherty being part of that. But I was somebody who had bet the Dodgers to win that series. Okay. And then I was so confident that Jack Flaherty was going to choke in game 5 in Yankee Stadium. I then took the money that I stood to win on the Dodgers to win the World Series and then bet it on the Yankees in game 5.
Oh, man.
I am a fucking genius, for the first 4 innings there. And then all of a sudden the worst inning that has ever taken place in the history of baseball. And suddenly I'm a loser. So I got what I had there. But it was funny where I made a post on Twitter. I went viral where I'd said something where I was just like, I laugh at the idea that people think that Jack Flaherty's a big game pitcher, and every Dodgers fan got upset at me and they thought it was just, like me being a bitter Cardinals fan. And I'm like, no, this is just me just speaking from my own experience with him. And as far as I'm concerned, it's one of those weird things where, to me, I'll just kind of get a little glory of this one. Aside from the, who was it? Oh, the Chris Taylor home run. I don't recall the Dodgers ever beating the Cardinals in anything significant in my life. If anything, I look at it as that one of the biggest strikes against Clayton Kershaw is the St. Louis Cardinals. And, it's weird how, and again, back to the idea of that not winning championships, 2 of my favorite memories as a St. Louis Cardinals fan don't involve the championships. They're Albert Pujols' home run off of Brad Lidge and Matt Adams off of Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah, and I'm a Clayton Kershaw stand as much as I can be, but I mean it is it's rough to see one of probably he'll go down as one of the greatest regular season pitchers of all time, and he just shrivels up in the postseason. I don't know what
It's
happens. It's almost like it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of when.
it becomes mental at a certain point, though. That's the whole thing.
Oh,
Is
it's
that
absolutely mental.
it starts off small, and then it goes from there. Which actually, funny enough, I believe Clayton Kershaw made his major league debut on my birthday one year, and I believe it was against the Cardinals, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that the thing that was rough for Kershaw at the beginning is that early on in his career, he had all the Dodgers just weren't very good. Like he just was one of those guys that got no run supports. And I always remember the year that when he was did he win the MVP or was he just in the front runner for the MVP the one year? I forget.
No, he won it. He was one of the first guys to go Cy Young and MVP.
And I remember the whole thing was that I'm going, do you know how many games he drove in his game-winning run as a should be allowed to win an MVP is, okay, they say he only plays 1 out of every 5th day, but how many at-bats is he responsible for throughout the course of a season? Like he plays a huge part in this. And I'll just also leave on this one as a baseball note is that I am of a minority camp that I believe that Oral Hershiser's scoreless inning streak is more impressive than Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak.
Yeah, I could give you that.
Because the way I look at this one is that in theory, a 56 game hitting streak can be done by a 250 hitter going 1 for 4.
Oh, yeah.
Like I remember when Dan Ugla had the, I think he got to like 30 some odd games or so. And everyone was just this idea that he doesn't deserve the record. And I'm like, what's how, if you break the record, you break the record. But I look at for, that's, you just need to get 1 hit out of 4 at-bats, sometimes maybe even 5. But for Oral Hershiser, for 58 2/3 innings, I believe that record is, you can't have one mistake. One mistake at that level is over the wall.
Hang 1 curveball and it's done.
It's, so I just always thinking that, it's just, I live in Yankee country where I'm just here to, just hate the Yankees. I was raised to do that, and it just makes it easier. So, when the Yankees and the Dodgers, play in the World Series, I'm still going to be, I guess I go more of a Dodgers because, I go with Ohtani for sure. And I'm curious to see. I have a feeling that he's going to do a Cy Young at some point too, just to just really cement himself as the unicorn. So as a gambler, I'll be betting Ohtani to win the Cy Young every year for the rest of his career because he's just got to.
I would opt out of it. I would opt out of this coming season because I don't. Think he's not going to do it till May. But I mean,
he's not going to get the
that starting rotation is going to be stupid once he gets involved. That's not even going to be fair.
Well, but here's the thing is that it always goes down to is that how, if it was these guys pitching all game, every game, I would say one thing, but, what are they going to do? Let them throw 5-6 innings? I mean, that's where baseball, does lose me a little bit, but that's, again, conversation from their day. But Jake, we've kind of gone full circle on everything we talked about.
Yep.
I don't mean to keep you from any more of your time since you got a house full of, well, hopefully not sick kids. Hopefully your kids are okay.
No. Kids are good. Kids are good. The rest of the county is sick, but apparently it skipped our house, thankfully.
Well, God bless. So, appreciate having you on here, Jake, and check him out on what's that, Real Talk with the Homies, and look forward to seeing what you produce out there. It sounds like you got a good thing going on, and it's been wonderful to make your acquaintanceship, my friends.
You as well, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you go here. I'll talk to you off air in just a second. All right. And that was a wonderful conversation with Mr. Jake Wardrip here. Again, just had the little short interaction with him a couple days ago and then just let it rip. And, just a wonderful guy. So check him out, follow him out, and, hopefully big things come from him. Everybody take it easy. That was this episode of the Scho-Zone, which we're going to be kind of limiting the episodes coming forward because as a guy who I mentioned, I'm going to do an episode where I announce more about my engagement, but I have to focus more of that on the wedding that I'm doing and, to my lovely fiance. So everybody take it easy. Have a good one.